Um, yeah. Okay, so how I got here. So right now I'm working at the University of Maine doing my doctorate. So in order to get there, it was kind of a weird, crazy journey. I was born in Wisconsin, and then I moved to, well, I started in Wisconsin. That's where I was born and raised. And I went to university, I went to college there to study to be a wildlife ecologist. So that's like somebody who would work at like the Department of Natural Resources, like making sure we have enough deer in the state, making sure we have enough moose in the state, like stuff like that. And one of my professors said that I should go to grad school, and I didn't know what that was. And it's basically just school to become a really good scientist, basically. And then if you want to keep going, you can keep going and eventually be a professor. And that's what I want to do. You can also keep going and work for different companies, or you can work for also for the Department of Natural Resources, just doing more science things. So I ended up going to Winnipeg in Canada to do my master's. This is where I'll show where Winnipeg is on a map in just a second. But I loved Canada, and when I was there, I studied bats. So this is a hoary bat. They're my favorite bat. They, some people call them sky lions. They're really cool because they fly long distances, so they have fur on their wings. And unfortunately, I don't have really good pictures because I'm a good scientist, but I'm a very bad photographer. So my apologies. But these are some bats that we visited in caves, and they have this disease called white nose syndrome, where fungus grows on their noses, and that prevents them from breathing really easily when they're hibernating. And so a lot of bats die when they're hibernating because of this new fungus disease. So I studied that and how it related to body temperature regulation. And that's what I did for my master's. It was really fun. We would go into caves, and everybody thinks the cave is like, you know, like in the movies, but they were actually really anticlimactic. They were little, this is the cave. Like there were like 8 caves that we visited, and they were all just little holes in the wall, in the ground. So yeah, they were cool. And I took a helicopter for work. And it's so cold in Canada that we can ice skate on the rivers there for like 6 miles. You can skate for 6 miles, and they have it cleared off. You can play hockey. So yeah, that's about me. I'm just gonna show Google Earth if I can figure it out. Yeah, okay, so you can all see this, right? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. So I was born in Wisconsin, right here, and I ended up going to college really close to where I was born. And then I moved up here to Winnipeg in Canada. It's almost, there's a sign right here outside of Winnipeg that says you're in the exact center of Canada. So almost the exact center of Canada. And sometimes I did my field work way up here. And this is the polar bear capital of the world. I never saw polar bears, but it was nearby, so I think that's cool. And then when I was there, I found out about work that Dr. Danielle Levesque was doing at the University of Maine, studying body temperature regulation. So I studied bats, which are used to having really cold winters, so they do weird stuff with their body temperature. But the animals that Dr. Levesque was studying are from Malaysia and live basically on the equator. So here's Maine, and you know the equator's kind of in the middle, and then over here in Southeast Asia is where Dr. Levesque did a lot of her work. So this is the island of Borneo, and this top half belongs to Malaysia. So Malaysia is the connection of a few spots. This part is also Malaysia, and then this bottom half is all Indonesia. And so I did all of my research right here in the state of Sarawak. And that's like jungle, rainforest kind of stuff. And it was really neat. But I went from Canada, where it's like minus 40 degrees, to Sarawak, where it's like 90 degrees. And I found out that I'm not good at body temperature regulation in the tropics. So that was fun to learn. Yeah. Okay, so the fancy title of what I do is Comparative Energetics of Mammalian Thermoregulation. I wanted to change that, but I apparently forgot. But that's basically comparing different species and how they deal with body temperature regulation. So thermoregulation is just a fancy way to say body temperature regulation. So do animals make their body temperature warm or hot, depending on the outside environments? And different species do different things also. And so I'm comparing different species that live on this island in the Pacific, or species that live, in Canada or in the US. So I'm going to see where you guys are at with science. I don't remember what grade I learned this, so maybe you haven't learned this yet, but what do these three animals on the left have in common? I guess there are a few things they have in common. Do you normally have participation or no? I can keep going otherwise.
Oh no, that's totally fine. So if anyone has any ideas, you can just send them in the chat. What do you think these three animals have in common? We have one student who's already answered that they're all green.
True, true.
And we have somebody else who says they're all reptiles.
Okay, awesome. Closer. And they are all green. That is true. Well, I'm not sure about the crocodile. I didn't get too close. These are all pictures of cool animals that I saw in Borneo also. Just, you know, these are all animals that live where I was doing my research. This is a pit viper, by the way. They're very venomous. So I also didn't get very close, but a girl who was more comfortable being close to snakes took that picture.
Oh, we also have that they're all tropical animals in tropical areas, and now we're getting some who are saying they're cold-blooded.
Exactly. Okay, awesome. So my favorite thing to focus on when you tell me about an animal is its body temperature. That's what I think is really cool. But there are a lot of cool things about these animals. So they are what we used to call cold-blooded, and that's what they're still teaching in schools, but the right term is actually ectotherm, because if these animals go and lay in the sunlight on like a dark colored rock or something, they'll absorb a lot of sunlight, a lot of heat, and then their body temperature will actually increase. And their body temperature will be the same temperature as the air that they're in or the rock that they're laying on. So they actually aren't always cold-blooded. That's only when they're in a place that's cold. So we call them, instead, we call them ectotherms. So ecto means outside, and thermi is like temperature, like, yeah, temperature. So we would call these animals ectotherms because in order to change their body temperature, they need interactions from the outside environment. They can't make their own body temperature change. They don't have as much control over it. They can slither onto like a warm rock, but that's it. It's more behavioral. Versus endothermy, that's where all my research is in. These are animals that can produce inside temperature. So that's endo means inside, and thermi. So that means they use their metabolism. So they use like food that they ate to create energy. And it's kind of like when you have your car, you turn your car on and the engine is going, and the engine is mostly there to make the car go. But because not all machines are totally efficient, it's also producing heat, right? The engine gets warm. And it's kind of the same thing with endotherms. So your body is, you know, busy doing other work, you know, walking and digesting food and all of that. And while it's working to stay alive, to keep your heart pumping, what it's also doing is producing heat. And so what these animals, so these endotherms, which is mostly mammals and birds, what they do is they harness that energy and use it to make their own body temperature warm. And that's where most of my research is done. So birds and mammals are the main groups of endotherms. This is a monkey that I saw in Malaysia, and this was my favorite dog. Her name was Brownie. Yeah, so a really cool picture that I always like to show is this thermal image. So this is a snake here. It's a rattlesnake. And if you look at this temperature thing, you can see its temperature is the same as the box that it's in. But you see this mouse here, it's really hot. It's like 37 degrees, which is, it's in Celsius. That's about what a human body temperature is. I actually took my roommate's body temperature today because we weren't sure if he was sick or not. And he was 36 degrees, so he's not sick, so all good things. So yeah, so this mouse is spending energy to maintain a high body temperature. Now, if it takes so much energy to like keep up a high body temperature, and certain animals can live while not wasting energy, why would we waste energy being warm? You know, like a snake is perfectly happy not being warm on the inside. So what are the benefits? So you guys know dinosaurs, right? Most dinosaurs were cold-blooded. We don't say cold-blooded, we say ectotherms. They're mostly ectotherms. So that means that they needed sunlight to stay warm. to be active. So when temperature is warmer, the molecules in your body are able to work faster. So because we're endotherms, because we're mammals, we can break down food faster, and we can, if you're pregnant, the baby will develop faster, which is better for the species, things like that. So most animals will want to be active during the day because that's when you can get enough energy from the sun to stay warm. But if you're an endotherm, you're able to also be active at nighttime when it's colder. So what happened was when there were tons of dinosaurs all over, there were also little mammals that had evolved to run around also, but they were still heterotherms, so they're still ectotherms, so they weren't able to regulate their body temperature that well yet. But then a couple of them figured out how to keep their body temperature just a little bit warmer than the outside temperature. So they were able to start being active at nighttime. And nighttime is a great time to be active if you're a mammal and there are dinosaurs during the day, because then you can be out, you're more free because all the dinosaurs are sleeping. So it was really great for those few mammals that were able to be active at nighttime. So then most of the animals started doing that. They're like, this is a great idea. And while they did that, their body temperature was warmer, and they were getting better at using that heat that was created while their metabolism was working. So eventually they were able to have their body temperature a lot warmer than the outside temperature. And then they were able to be like stronger and more fit, and then they were able to be active during the daytime also. But still, most mammals are actually active at night. So there are a lot of species of animals that you maybe have never even seen because you haven't been up too late. So like that's a really cool. So this is, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with graphs, so I'm just going to do this real quick graph, and let me know if you're confused about it. So at the bottom, we have ambient temperature. So that's like outside temperature. And most animals, like you, me, my dog, we maintain regular body temperatures, no matter if it's really cold, so really low temperatures, like 0 degrees, or if it's 100 degrees, our body temperature will almost always be the same temperature on the inside, except for when it gets really hot, then you get hyperthermia. So if you've ever ran around a lot in the summertime and you kind of feel sick afterwards and people have to put ice on your head to cool you down, that's when your body temperature gets a little too hot and your body is probably not happy with you. Because at those high body temperatures, different molecules in your body will actually break. So it's bad to be too hot. So your body temperature is normally stable, but your body has to work to make you stay that temperature. So at temperatures that are like room temperature, so like between 68 and 74 degrees, your body doesn't have to do any work to keep you warm. But if it starts getting colder, you'll probably behaviorally thermoregulate. So you'll put on a jacket or something, or go to a warmer place. But if you can't do that, then your body will start shivering to make you warm. And shivering is just a bunch of muscle contractions. So you're using energy. So then at these lower temperatures, so when it's cold outside and you don't have a jacket on, you're shivering and you're using a lot of energy. So your metabolism is increasing. The same thing happens when it's really hot outside. If it's warmer than your body temperature, then your body has to try to cool you down. And in order to do that, it normally makes you sweat, or if you're a dog, you'll be panting, and that costs a lot of water and energy. So normally animals like us like to stay in the stable temperature. And that stable temperature zone is called the thermal neutral zone. So neutral, so you're not spending energy to keep your body temperature. Instead, your body can focus on more important things like digesting ice cream. Way more important.
We have a quick question about that graph. A student is wondering if you could talk about the top purple line just one more time.
Oh yeah, so this is your body temperature. So my roommate, his name is Frank, his body temperature is always 37 degrees because he's a human. And humans aren't that exciting to study body temperature in, if I'm being honest, which is why I focus on other cooler things. So at really cold temperatures, so if you go outside without a jacket on, if you go outside completely naked, your body will still be 37 degrees on the inside. And if you go outside when it's 100 degrees and you're sweating a lot, your body will also still be 37 degrees. And right now at room temperature, your body is also 37 degrees Celsius. I'm sorry, what is it in Fahrenheit? 97? 98?
Yeah, I
98.
think it's right around 98.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'll try to speak in Fahrenheit. I'm sorry. My supervisor is Canadian, and all of the scientists that I work with are from Europe or Malaysia or Canada. So I always speak in Celsius. I'm sorry. Okay, so if it's yeah, so if it's like 100 degrees outside, your body will be 97 degrees, and if it's minus 40, your body will also be 97 degrees. So because you're a homeotherm, I'll get to that in a second, your body temperature is always flat, always stable. But in order to do that, sometimes your body has to make you warm, sometimes it has to make you cold. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for asking questions. Feel free to ask me as many questions as you have. That's like one of my favorite parts. Okay, cool. So now I dropped one of these words already, heterothermy and homeothermy. Hetero means different, and homeo means the same. So Homo sapiens is like the same as us because that's what we are. So Homo sapiens. Homogenized milk means the milk is all the same. It's mixed. So that's what homeo means, the same. Hetero means different. So thermy is the way you make body temperature, right? So this is one of my favorite homeotherms. This is my dog, Luna. She's the best. Right now she's laying on my feet, keeping my feet warm. So a lot of animals that we're familiar with, we always think are homeotherms. Those are animals like us that just maintain that flat body temperature line. Luna is very cute, but she doesn't do a lot of exciting things with her body temperature, in my opinion. Versus my other favorite animal, bats. This is a little, actually no, this is a different bat. This is a bat that I caught in Germany. I don't know what kind of bat it is. I don't remember. I think it might be Mups. Mups is the Latin name. I don't remember though. But anyways, this is a bat. Bats are really cool because as you know, they hibernate in caves. So in the winter when there's no food, instead of, there's no food and it's really cold. So think about how expensive that would be to maintain a stable body temperature. So instead what they do is they allow their body temperature to go to ambient temperature, to environmental temperatures. So what they do is they find a cave, and caves are normally above freezing. So there's not normally ice in caves, which is interesting. So it's above freezing, and they lower their body temperature down to the same temperature of the cave. And then it's basically like sleeping, but super sleep. So instead of having a high metabolism to maintain maintain their body temperature, they use like barely any energy, and they're not digesting food or anything. So their only energy is like beating their heart once a minute. They're extremely low. So that's really cool because heterothermy means they can change their body temperature. And so you might be thinking, oh, okay, like that's the most extreme end of changing your body temperature, right? Wrong. This is one of my favorite animals. This is a tenrec. They are very weird animals that we found in Madagascar, which is a huge island off the coast of Africa. I don't know if you've seen the movie Madagascar, but yeah, very good movie, if I can recommend it. So I don't think tenrecs are in the movie though. So maybe it's not the best movie because they don't have tenrecs. But anyways, tenrecs look like hedgehogs, right? They're kind of pokey and they're small. They're only like this big, but they're actually more closely related to elephants. So they're cousins with elephants, whereas hedgehogs are in a completely different family. So it's really cool that they evolved to look so similar, even though they're not related. But what they do is crazy. So bats hibernate for, from October until April, but they have to wake up every 2 weeks in order to, well, we don't really know why they have to wake up, but every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they wake up and they, stretch their wings and their blood pumps a little bit faster. So we think it might have something to do with the pH of their blood, so it doesn't get too acidic or something, but we don't know. And we thought that all animals that hibernated had to do that. But then we found tenrecs. Tenrecs can hibernate without waking up, without stretching their arms or anything, without breathing too much. They can hibernate for like 8 months, just not waking up, not eating, not going to the bathroom, nothing. And we don't know how. It's amazing. So there's a lot of research to be done there so we can learn how they do that. Because if we can figure out how they do that, then what some people are talking about is sending humans to Mars would take years, and so you would have to have the person fall asleep because you can't put that much food on the spaceship for them. So if we get humans to hibernate like a tenrec, then we could do deep space travel or something like that. I don't know. That's not what I study, and that stuff hurts my brain. But that's an exciting area of research. So those tenrecs are extreme heterotherms, versus on the other end of the spectrum, we have homeotherms like dogs and humans. So a lot of my research is trying to figure out where animals fit on that big line. And I also did a project with tenrecs trying to figure out how they do that, because that's crazy that they're able to sleep so long. So going back to this, remember this is body temperature and it's normally flat in homeotherms. And it costs energy to do that, versus a heterotherm can enter torpor, so they can do that super sleep, and they just let their body temperature be room temperature. So when ambient temperature is cold down here, then their body temperature is also very cold. And when it's really hot out, so if it's like 100 degrees outside, they let their body temperature get 100 degrees. If we do that, we'd go crazy. If you have a really high fever, that a fever can be good, but if it's too high, then it's not good. So, but by doing that, they actually save a lot of energy. So their metabolic rate is the same across all of these temperatures. So does anybody have any questions so far?
They have a few, but I think we can save them till the end because most of them are more related to some different things than exactly what you're talking about. But,
okay, yeah. That's awesome. I tried to make it so I'll talk about Malaysia just for a little bit, and then there should be plenty of time for questions. Okay, cool. Then I went to Malaysia, and I went to Malaysia because a lot of research right now, a lot of things that we know about mammals is from animals that scientists caught in Canada and Europe and the US. But not a lot of physiology research has been done in the South, like in South America or Africa or Southeast Asia. So we don't, and those areas have a lot more mammals than what we have in Canada and Maine. I don't know how many species Maine has, but compared to Borneo, it's almost nothing. And so these animals don't have to deal with winter. So they have a completely different lifestyle, and they also live, so we think that the ability to maintain that warm body temperature, remember that picture of the dinosaurs and the mammals running away? We think that the ability to have a warm body temperature happened in warm places, because if it's snowing all the time and you can't make your body temperature warm, you can't survive. That's one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of reptiles or snakes very far north, because they wouldn't have any energy for most of the year. So studying animals in the tropics could teach us more about how mammals evolved to be endothermic. Endothermy is that internal body temperature. So this is a rat. This is Sundamus muelleri. Yeah, I don't have to explain why it's named that. It's a rat, and in the Malay language, it's tikus. And so I learned Malay so that I could talk to people there. But then when I got there, I found out that the village where I live, they speak a little bit of Malay, but their number one language is just a language that's only used in a few small villages. So they have a very specific language called Bidayu. And so tikus, which is rat, tikus, which is in Malay, in Bidayu, it's actually birog, which was really hard for me to say, but this is a birog, and they carry diseases that can make humans sick. So I always wore gloves and tried not to like breathe in their air or anything like that. But a disease that affects humans is called a zoonotic disease. So COVID is a zoonotic disease that came from bats. And so these animals also have different zoonotic diseases. There are actually a lot of zoonotic diseases. I actually have a book about all of the zoonotic diseases that I thought I should read during quarantine, just because it was ironic. So yeah, but they're very cute. They're very nice. They did not like being caught, but I always put them back where I found them. So all in all, it wasn't too bad. Eventually, I had some rats that kept on coming back over and over and over again because they would get free pineapple. So that kind of messed with my research, but it's okay. Yeah, I want to go to Google Earth again. So, where are we? Okay, so that red dot is where my parents live. Actually, okay, so we're in Maine, right? And to get to Malaysia, it's faster if you go this way. So there's Hawaii. So when I flew there, I always flew to New York, and then I would fly to South Korea. And then from South Korea, I flew to Bangkok, which is right here in Thailand. And then I took a little 1 hour flight to Borneo. So this is Borneo, and Borneo is partially Indonesia and partially Malaysia. And then I was right here. And Sarawak is the main city. And then there's a big mountain range here, which is very beautiful. And I was in a village, I'm gonna mess this up now, right around here. Yeah, right there. So just so you know where it was. All right, okay. So here, this is a cool map that I like to show. So the red is the species diversity. So the red areas are places that have a lot of species. And these yellow areas are places that have very low species diversity. So this is just saying there are a lot of different species that live there. Compared to, I don't know how many mammals we have in Maine, maybe like 30. This area just has like maybe over 100 different mammal species. I might be wrong. It's a lot though. And that's because it's so warm and it hasn't been covered by glaciers in a really long time. So there was time for all these mammals to reproduce and then turn into their own species. So next question, what do all of these animals have in common? There are a few things they have in common. Any guesses? Does anybody know what this is also?
Oh, yeah. We're getting a lot of people saying they are rodents. They have whiskers. They have fur. They're all in the mouse family. They're all mammals. They all look like
Okay, awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, cool. So capybaras are the biggest rodents. So these are all rodents. Good job. So a capybara is the biggest rodent that we have. It's like just big. It's just like a pig, basically, except they are rodents. So yes, they're all mammals because what makes something a mammal is that it has hair and that it produces milk for its babies. All mammals also produce their own body temperature, so they're all endothermic. And then within mammals, you have like whales. Whales are mammals, humans are mammals, dogs are mammals, and then we also have rodents. So rodents are their own little section. Rodents have 2 big teeth in the front that keep growing. That's the biggest distinction. They also, yeah, so rodents, squirrels are rodents, mice are rodents, capybaras are rodents. I think this is a jumping mouse. I just thought it was really cute, so I put that in there. It is a rodent also. And rodents live on, I think, every continent in the world. And so they have a huge range of they all eat different things. Some of them have stable body temperatures, so they're homeotherms, and some of them are heterotherms, and they can hibernate for months. Red squirrels, this is a red squirrel, they're pretty cool. So they don't hibernate, and instead they spend a lot of energy during the summer collecting food, pine cones, for the winter. So they don't have to lower their body temperature because they have so much food. And so it's energetically expensive, but they have enough in savings, so they're okay. So there's a lot of cool research that people do on squirrels too. Yeah. Cool. So Sundamus muelleri are the rat that I studied. So they're nocturnal. That means that they're active at night. They're insectivorous. Does anybody want to guess what insectivorous means? There are some clues within the word if you look at words that fit inside the word.
Oh, yeah, we're already getting a lot of answers that they eat bugs or eat insects.
Yeah, awesome. So they eat insects. Awesome. So insectivorous means they eat insects. What are some other ones? Carnivores eat meat, herbivores eat plants. So they eat insects. And they're also rodents. This is the range. So I was doing my research right here on the island of Borneo, but they are also found on peninsular Malaysia, up in Thailand, and also on the island of Jakarta in Indonesia, and also on some islands in the Philippines as well. But I did all my research right here. So to catch the rats, they are active at night. So that means that before bed, I would go and put a whole bunch of traps in the woods. I think normally like 50 or 60, no, 70. I would put 70 traps all over in the jungle. And then I would bait it with pineapple, which smelled really good and it was really juicy. It's not what they normally eat, but everybody can make an exception in their diet, right? So I would put those along these trails in the forest. And I had some people helping me too, because 70 traps is a lot of work. And then it was set up, so if you look, the pineapple is hanging on a hook here. Okay, so it's just dangling there. And then that hook is connected to this line here, and that line is, or that bar is what's holding the door open. So then when an animal goes inside and takes a bite of that, it moves that hook, and then this bar will fall off of that hook and the door will shut really fast, and then they're stuck in there with a piece of pineapple, so it's not that bad. So then they'll eat the pineapple and wait for sunrise. And then at sunrise, I went out and I would check all of the traps and see if I had caught anything. And so I would say almost every day I caught a rat. Sometimes I got weird things. Sometimes I caught a crab one time, like a river crab. So in Malaysia, they actually have crabs that live in freshwater in the rivers there, which is really cool. Yeah, when I trapped in Maine or when I was in Canada, I would catch a lot of slugs because a slug would go in and move it and then it would shut. I was like, cool, a slug, awesome. But this is also how we catch flying squirrels. So my supervisor, my professor is also doing research on campus looking at flying squirrels. And we have a similar thing to this, except for we bait it with seeds. So then when they touch the seeds, the door closes. But it's good because it doesn't hurt the animal, because I need the animal to be happy and breathing and alive when I catch it. So these don't hurt them at all. And then I take them back to, I actually did all my research in my bedroom in Malaysia. So I was staying in a little village and I had a bedroom and I had a whole bunch of equipment plugged in. I'll tell you about that later. But what I studied was respirometry. So respiration is breathing, right? So respirometry, the metry, like what's the word that has trigonometry? Is the study of triangles or shapes, right? So this metry is an ending that means like to measure. So I studied respirometry, which is the study of breathing. And so what I would do is I would put the animal in a little see-through box about this big, and it had enough room to, turn around, roll over, stand up and try to get out. And then on the bottom was this metal grate that you can see here. And then under the grate was oil, so that when they pooped or peed, it would go through and land in the oil, and the oil would kind of cover it up so that so that it didn't stink for the animal, and so that the water vapors didn't escape, because that would have messed with my readings, because I was only interested in what was coming out of their mouth and going in. So I had them in this little box about this big, and that's where they live just for the daytime. So the daytime is when they were sleeping anyways. So most of my animals just took a really long nap in the machine and it was fine. And then I let them go back in the forest where I caught them. So they were in this little box, and then what I did is I put that little box inside a cooler. And in that cooler, I could change the temperature. So this part of the machine was changing temperature. So I could make it really hot, or I could make it really cold, and then I could see what happened. So what I did is I would make it, so let me explain. So I would measure oxygen going in, and the oxygen levels on Earth, anywhere on Earth, are normally going to be about 20.95% of the air is oxygen. Does anybody know what the main thing in air is, the main molecule? This might be a hard one. I'll just give you a couple seconds, because this is an advanced question.
We've got someone who says nitrogen, and a lot of people saying carbon dioxide.
Okay, awesome. So nitrogen is actually the most common molecule found in the air. And I don't study it because our body doesn't really do too much with nitrogen. But yes, there is also a lot of carbon dioxide, which I also studied. But carbon dioxide is there's actually not that much in the air, enough to make a difference and be causing global warming, which isn't good. But nitrogen is what's mostly out there. So I was interested in oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor, because that's what your body uses the most of from the air. So oxygen, we know that the oxygen going in, we know that the air going in is 20.95% oxygen. And because you use oxygen and you breathe out carbon dioxide, we expect that when the oxygen goes in, it's 20.95%. And if you're using oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide, eventually the air that's coming out, a smaller percentage of it will be oxygen then. So yeah, it takes a few seconds to figure out, but if you're breathing a lot, then less oxygen will come out because you're using it, right? And instead, what you're exhaling is carbon dioxide. So right now, the Earth has 400 parts of carbon dioxide per million particles, per million pieces. So we knew that the air coming in, I measured the air going into the animal's box, was 400 parts per million. And if it's breathing and using energy, then there should be more carbon dioxide coming out. Remember, because you breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So there were more than 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide coming out. And so what we do is we measure that amount. So if you're like in this cooler and I have it really hot and this animal is sweating a lot or like panting a lot and it's breathing really heavy because it's not a happy temperature, then what you'll see is the oxygen that's leaving the box is really low because it had to use so much oxygen for energy to keep its body temperature low. And because it's like panting, it's like, right, then the air that's coming out is going to be a lot of carbon dioxide because it's using a lot of oxygen, it's using a lot of energy. So that is our proxy for metabolic rate. That's like kind of like the sneaky way that we measure metabolism is in the velocity of oxygen that's consumed. The other vapor that we measured was water vapor. So at really high temperatures, you should use a lot of water to cool your body down. And that's how we see how comfortable they were at high temperatures. So if they were really comfortable at really high temperatures, that would be really interesting for us because then with climate change, maybe they won't be in as stressful of a condition as we currently think they might be in if it gets hotter. So if we turn the temperature up to like 90 degrees or 95 degrees, which is really hot, and they're still okay, that's good information for us to have as scientists. And the water vapor is a tricky one to measure because in Malaysia, it's so humid. So normally I would say it's like 30% water in the current room that you're in, maybe a little bit lower because it's winter, so it's not that humid. So there's not a lot of water vapor in there. But in Malaysia, it was normally 80 to 85% humidity. So my hair was like this every day. It was so humid. So what I did is I pumped the air through some chemicals that absorbed the water so that the water going into the animal's box was only like 8%, but then coming out it would be a higher percentage because they would be like exhaling. And when they are exhaling or panting or sweating, then there's more water in the air because it's coming out of the animal. So the animals were all okay. I let them all go back at their home when I was done, normally at nighttime because they had a long nap and then it was time for them to go and hunt more insects. So I let them back in the forest. So this is a really nice clean picture of how respirometry works. The 3 airs going in and the 3 airs going out. But it was actually very, very messy. So there are a whole bunch of different machines here. This machine is connected here, and that's what's changing the temperature of the cooler. So I can make it really hot or really cold. I tried to make it really cold, but the coldest I could get it was 68 degrees. So that means that this little machine, it kind of worked like an air conditioner and a heater combined. So when I had it in the air conditioning setting, it could only make the room or make this little box 68 degrees because it was so hot in the actual room that I was standing in. And then I could also make it, I could also heat the air. So I think the hottest that I made it was whatever 40 degrees is in, like almost like, what is that? Almost 100 degrees. I could make it like 100 degrees Fahrenheit also. And I only did that for a little bit because 104. Okay, wow, that's toasty. So to make sure the animals were sleeping and not angry or trying to escape, I also had a little USB video camera, like a web camera, that was connected so I could watch them to make sure they're okay. Because I had the cooler was close so that it was dark. Because in their nests underground, it's probably dark while they sleep. So I was able to watch them through there. They also had a little passive integrated transponder, which is like a little pit tag. It's like the size of a grain of rice, and I used a needle and put it in between their shoulder blades, just under their skin. So a lot of people have dogs that have a tag, and the vet scans it, and then it'll give you the ID. So I have the same thing with these rats. And so then I could constantly monitor their body temperature also, or not their body temperature, but their under the skin temperature to also make sure that they were okay. And then I could also see how much oxygen they were using and how much carbon dioxide they were using. And if it got to be too much and I could tell they were uncomfortable, I could end the experiment early and let them go outside. Give them some water to drink and some pineapple, and then let them go back outside. Yeah, and this is the machine that measures carbon dioxide. This is the machine that, or carbon dioxide and water, and this is the machine that measured the oxygen. And these are the chemicals that I pumped the water through so that it would absorb the water. I pumped the air through so that it would absorb the water. This is silica gel. So sometimes when you buy things, it has those little silica packets, and it says, do not eat. Like I bought a new gym bag and it had one of those in, and that's to absorb the water so that the bag doesn't mold while it's in the store. So this is the same thing, but for scientists. So you can buy big bags of them. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions there?
We have a couple of students who are wondering if you could talk a little more just about what carbon dioxide is.
Yeah. Here, I'll go back to here. Okay. So carbon dioxide. Carbon, it's a, oh my gosh, what if I get this wrong? It's one carbon molecule and two oxygen. No, that's not right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is. It's two oxygen molecules. Oh my goodness. So it's just a molecule that oh, I should know more about this. I don't know that about the small parts of my research. So yeah, oxygen is two oxygen molecules combined, and your body is using that the oxygen goes into your lungs, and then in your lungs it gets put into your bloodstream, and then that's used at your cellular level. Your cells use that to stay alive and to do their functions, so like to build things and whatever. You're like, if your skin needs to build more skin cells, right? Or yeah, stuff like that. Or if it needs energy to like digest food or something like that. Also, I'm going to have to check this in the textbooks too, because I'm not good at this. Is a very good question. Jeepers. And then when it does that, then so your cells use the oxygen, and then the garbage that they put out is carbon dioxide. So after they, do their metabolic thing and they make whatever they're making, they always have garbage, right? And the garbage that they make is carbon dioxide. So then the carbon dioxide gets absorbed by your blood, and then your blood brings it back to the lungs, and then it goes into your lungs, and that's what you exhale. And that's the extent of my knowledge. So the more oxygen that's coming out, the faster your body is working, the faster it's producing this garbage air, right? So when the carbon dioxide came out of the box, it was normally like 1,000 parts per million versus the 400 parts per million that are going in. I'm sorry, that's as much as I know though.
That's okay, that's great, thank you.
Great question. I'm actually gonna write that down as something to look up, because I have a really big exam called my comprehensive exam, which is 5 days, 8 hours every day of an exam where they ask me any question about my research, and I have 8 hours to write a long answer about it. And then the next day I have 8 hours, and the next day I have another question that's going to take me 8 hours to write. And if they ask me a question like that, I should know the answer. Yeah. Okay. Feel free to interrupt if you read any questions that need immediate answering. Okay, cool. So these are my results. So this bottom graph, if they were homeotherms, remember it would be in a straight line with a little dip at the end, right? It would be a constant body temperature because at really cold temperatures, they would maintain a constant body temperature, and at really high temperatures, they would have a constant body temperature, except for that dip at the end when it gets too hot. And so what I actually see is when the temperature was like 68 degrees Fahrenheit, their body temperature was 36 degrees, which when I took my roommate's temperature today, his body temperature was also like 36.4 or something like that. So this is actually not very cold. Yeah, which is interesting. I thought that they should be colder, but they weren't. They were actually using energy. So this graph up here, this is the metabolic rate, but I should have changed the wording on the side. This is the velocity of oxygen consumed. It's measured in milliliters per hour. So how many milliliters of water were they using per hour, per gram? So I also divided it by how much the animal weighed. But you just need to know that it's metabolic rate. So really high points are animals. So each one of these dots is a different animal. And I tested it at one temperature. So for example, at this point, this is, I'll say it's like 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You can tell by the x-axis, this is 68 degrees, this is way down here, and like the 100-degree measurements are up here. So way down here at 68 degrees, they were using about 1.25 milliliters of oxygen, which is not that much. And then way up here at 100 degrees, they were using almost the same amount, 1.25 milliliters of oxygen per hour. So you do see that this, if you do enough math, you can see that at high temperatures, it is slightly higher. So they are using energy to maintain this stable body temperature. And if you look, I would say this is a pretty straight line until right about here when it gets hotter. So we say that they are more homeothermic. Hi, Costa. So they are more homeothermic. So remember those animals that had a straight body temperature, like my dog and me, my roommate, those are homeotherms. If it was a real heterotherm, we would expect it to have a straight line and not be wasting any energy maintaining body temperature. And we would expect its body temperature to be in a straight line, like crooked, right? Where at really low temperatures, it has low body temperature, and high temperatures, it has high body temperature. But when it was really cold down here, its body temperature was still like 10 degrees Celsius warmer. So that's like, what, like 20 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. So my conclusion is that this rat is more of a homeotherm, more like dogs and humans, than it is like a heterotherm, like bats and tenrecs. And we also saw that it had a lower limit here. So we did some math and found that it is significantly different of a slope between this part and that part. So we say that that was the lower limit. And then we can't really see an upper limit in the metabolism, but if you look at body temperature, there is a slight upper limit here, but it's not really clear. So I might write a paper about that, but overall, this made me excited about tropical research. So my next step in my PhD is going to be assembling a huge data set that has all of the information on all of the mammals that we have. And then I'm going to try to look at patterns. So do animals that live in the tropics have more flexible body temperatures, or are they more likely to be heterothermic versus animals that are found in the northern part of the globe, like in Europe and Canada and the US? Are they more likely to be homeothermic or heterothermic? I don't know yet. So not a lot of people have looked at this yet, which is what makes it so exciting. So I can't Google any of these questions, which is scary but also exciting. And then the most important part of any scientist is to actually share that information that they find. Because what's the point of me doing all this research and not telling anybody about it? Because then when I die and in 100 years somebody has the same question, they'll have to go and do all the work again. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a paper which tells somebody else what I did. And so I'm going to explain my, my hypotheses and my methods, and then my results and all the math that I did, and then what that means for animals experiencing climate change. So as temperatures are really high, are they going to be affected? Are they still going to be able to live at those high body temperatures? And right now, all the information that we have about high body temperatures is just based on animals that live in Canada and Europe and the US, which isn't enough because we have to know what's going to happen everywhere. So these animals might already be living where it's close to their upper body temperatures. So maybe they don't have as much wiggle room as an animal living in Canada. So with that, I would like to thank all of the amazing people that helped me. So this is Marcel. He studies beetles in Malaysia. This is a he studies lizards, so he would always go and catch lizards. I'm like, no, we're trying to catch mammals. But he was awesome. This is Gertrude and Lucia. They're the family that I stayed with. Gertrude is going to be a civil engineer, so she's like designing things. I don't really know. She's an engineer. She doesn't study animals, so I don't know as much about what she does. And this is Tall. She graduated from the University of Maine last year, and she just called me and said, "Can I come to Malaysia and work with you?" And I said, "Sure." So then she flew to Malaysia just a couple weeks later because she wanted to catch some animals with me. And this is my professor at the University of Malaysia, Sarawak, and he helped me with all the logistics and stuff. And this is me with Lucia. She would cut coconuts for us with her machete, but it's called parang in Malay. And so she would cut these coconuts with machetes and then give me a straw. And I felt like, yeah, like I was on a tropical island. And then this picture, I had to put this picture in because this is Veronica. She studies snakes. And she's the one who took that really good picture of the pit viper because I was way too scared to get close to them because they're venomous. So if they bite you, you have to go to the hospital as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll like lose an arm or something. So she was very brave. And yeah, that's all I have. So
Yeah,
now's the question time.
that is awesome. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and one that I know a lot of students have asked is, are you still in college and taking classes, or are you just doing research, or how does that balance work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think even my family asks me that question. So what I did is I went to college for 4 years. So I graduated high school, and then I went to college for 4 years and got it's called a bachelor's degree. And people call that undergraduate degree or bachelor's degree. That's like if somebody says they're going to college, it's normally what they mean is that 4 year period, if it's a 4 year university. Both of my brothers went to what we call technical colleges, and that's a 2 year degree. And so that was to do like machine stuff and things in that area. And I went for science, it took 4 years. And then I did my master's degree. And master's degree are 2 years, and PhDs or a doctorate is 5 years. And so when you're done with your undergraduate degree, when you're done with your first 4 years of college, you can decide if you want to do a master's degree or a PhD. And a PhD is where they call you doctor at the end and you can be a professor, but then maybe you don't do as much outside work and you're normally inside thinking and writing. Whereas a master's degree, so I didn't know if I wanted to do that, so I didn't do that right away. And instead I did my master's degree, which was the 2 years, and that actually was really slow, so it took me 3 years, but I got to stay in Canada longer then, so I was okay with it. So there I did a project. So I did a project that took a really long time to set up. So I planned it for my entire first year that I was there. And that entire first year, I was planning my project. And then on Tuesdays, I was teaching Biology 100 labs. So that's to the people who are still doing college. I was teaching them biology because I had already graduated from college. So I was teaching them all day on Tuesday. And then I also had classes on Mondays and Wednesdays that were just a few hours. And then I had homework. And then like on Thursdays and Fridays are when I planned my actual science that I was going to do in the summer. So that's what I did the first year. And then during the summer, I didn't have any classes, so I could go up north into the forest and catch all of the bats and measure them and do all of that research. And then in September, I had to go back to the city, and that's when I would again teach all day Tuesday. I had classes on Monday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are when I would look at all of my data, like on a big spreadsheet, and I would do a ton of math where I would, make these graphs and do different statistics and stuff like that. And then, so that was basically my schedule. So I taught people who were taking Biology 100, who were like 19 years old and just graduated high school and starting college. And then I also did my research, and then I also took some classes. Right now, because I'm in my third year of my PhD, I don't take any classes anymore. So I finished that. I only had to take a couple classes, and I'm done with that because I've been in school I've been doing my doctorate for 3 years. But now I still teach. So I teach on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays are when I do my research and I do all of the analyses. And now I did all of the math for a lot of my work, and now I'm just writing out my reports. So I sit in front of my computer a lot, and when I get bored, I take my dog for a walk. But Yeah, that was a really good question.
That is a perfect segue because we have a couple students who are wondering if you could remind them of what your dog's name is again.
My dog's name is Luna. One second, I'm going to wake her up from her nap. Luna, you're going to be famous. Come here. She's kind of heavy, but. Luna, come here. Oh.
She is so sweet.
You tell she was just sleeping? But she's happy. She's wagging her tail. Yeah, I just got her from the Humane Society a few months ago.
Oh, she is so cute.
Yeah, she's the best. And her name was Luna when we got her, so. But I like the name, so.
I love it. And then we have some students who are wondering, what is your favorite part of your job?
This is a hard one because I love my job too much. Let's see. I get to travel a lot and meet new people and go to new places and eat really good food. I really like that. So making friends with all of these people in Malaysia was really awesome. It was hard because then I left. And so I went to Malaysia for 2 summers. And it was really hard saying goodbye because I haven't seen any of them since, but I got to meet really cool people and we're still friends and we talk a lot, like using Facebook and stuff. That I think is one of my favorite parts. Sometimes the math is really hard, but when it's really hard, that means that when you actually figure it out, it's very exciting. And I love that feeling. I also like writing because while I'm writing here, I'll show you what I'm working on. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, so I'm writing my proposal right now, and it's taking each sentence that I write, I have to say where I got that information. And these little blue things are the papers that I read to get there. And so, for example, like this paper that I read was about this weird like squirrel type thing. It's called a tree shrew that lives in Malaysia. So I had to read a paper about a tree shrew. And then I had to read a paper about an echidna, which are those beaked, spiky animals that live in Australia. And then I had to read a paper about how mammals evolved from dinosaurs. And so every day I learn new things, and I really like that too. And I get to play with cool animals too. So these are some more pictures of tenrec. And to study the tenrecs, I went to Las Vegas, which was cool. I didn't think I ever wanted to go to Las Vegas because I don't like to gamble or anything. So I didn't gamble at all while I was there, but it was still really cool. I didn't know there were mountains in Las Vegas, and again, really good food. So that was really neat. So I like all of those parts of my job.
Awesome. Well, I think we are unfortunately running out of time here, but we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us all and teach us about tons of cool stuff. I learned a lot of different stuff, so that was awesome. And we have one last request. If you could show the picture of the snake one more time.
Yeah, the snake. And so she used, so all of these pictures that you're seeing are taken with my phone, which aren't very good. It's not very good quality, but she had a really fancy camera. And I'll even make it bigger. Oops, can I make it bigger? Snake. Yeah, so she had a really fancy phone. Ah.
Hi.
Hi. I'm in a meeting right now. Yeah, it's okay. So there, and you can tell it's a viper because it has like a triangle head. It kind of looks like a
super cool.
It's really neat.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, and I appreciate all of the students for coming on and asking great questions and having a lot here, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We will see you all soon, hopefully.
Yeah, and if you guys come up with any questions, email, and then I can respond to those also.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Yeah, take care. Bye.